It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of August 30th, 1996. Labor Day weekend, of course, we have 4 movies to look at, so let's go ahead and jump on into it, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is the sequel to The Crow, City of Angels. So, of course, the first Crow was a big success when it came out in 1994, and it was mostly in part because of what happened to Brandon Lee on that film. It was, of course, the film he got shot on and killed. And luckily, that film turned out to be a pretty good success because of what Alex Proyas brought to the table with it. So naturally, Miramax is going to make a sequel to this. And I know it's going to be really tough to do, but goddamn, you could have tried much better than this movie. I mean, good lord. What a major step down this movie is. I mean, there's so much potential that could be done with this. Okay, you don't have Brandon Lee anymore, but you know what? You could have gotten other actors to play him in this movie compared to this guy, Vincent Perez, which I'll give it to him. He's trying his best here, but he is no Brandon Lee, and he also was in Queen of the Damned. There's actually not a whole lot of big names in this movie, honestly, compared to the first movie. I mean, I think the biggest name in here is Iggy Pop, and even then, there's also Mia Kirshner from The L Word, and we talked about her in now I can't remember the name of the movie here. Just let me see for a sec. I know Exotica. That's what it was. Thomas Jane is in here. Beverly Mitchell from Seventh Heaven is in here. But there's no big names here, and there's no real story about this movie. It just feels like they made a sequel because they were contractually obligated to make a sequel after the first film became such a huge success, and this is the end of result of that, and people went to go see it. It's actually it held the record for the best Labor Day weekend opening of all time up until Jeepers Creepers and Jeepers Creepers 2 had it in 2001, 2003. It's hard to believe that $9 million was the highest opening weekend for a movie on Labor Day weekend at that point, considering what over 25 years later, Shang-Chi made almost $100 million on that weekend alone. But then again, that's a Marvel Studios film. You had the COVID pandemic pushing films back, and so that kind of made sense. That had a big weekend, but that's neither here or there. We're talking about this movie here, and it doesn't capture the same spirit as the original film. It just feels like it feels pretty much like it's a bad sequel to a really good film. Like we've seen so many of these on this show, and we've talked about them in the years that we've been covering the show. We've talked about the bad Hellraiser sequels. We've talked about the bad Candyman sequels. We've talked about the bad Halloween sequels, and you're just never going to really be able to top the original film unless you could do something new and creative with it, and this movie just really does not. It's a really huge step down compared to the first film, and I'm willing to bet that this movie really had nothing to do with The Crow before that movie came out. This felt like a script that was in production for several years, and they said, hey, we need a sequel to The Crow, so we'll just slap the name of The Crow on here and just rework it around this character, and the movie just doesn't work. It's a failure on so many levels. It's a huge miscalculation, and let's be honest, the first Crow was a movie that it's going to be really hard to top, and it tells you that this is the only theatrical sequel that we've gotten so far from the Crow series since then, because all the other ones went straight to DVD, which is never a good sign for a series that was hopefully to start a new franchise. But yeah, just watch the original Crow, man. That's really all you need to see with this film. So that is The Crow, City of Angels. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next film, which is Sinbad in the comedy First Kid. Directed by the same guy that did The Sandlot, which was a far superior film. Actually, this was the last theatrical release that this guy did before he went straight to direct-to-video movies. He did stuff like Beethoven's Third. He did The Sandlot sequel, The Sandlot 2, Ace Ventura Jr., Pet Detective, which that pretty much should tell you everything you need to know about these movies, about the movies that this guy has made since then. But, this movie is actually not that bad. Is it a good movie? I won't go that far. It definitely is very formulaic. It definitely is very generic. It is very much a by-the-numbers movie of this type. But, like I said before, it's not the worst thing ever. And it does have some good funny moments here. And I think Sinbad does a pretty good job carrying the movie on its own. If the movie had been a little bit more clever, a little bit more unique in the script writing process, maybe you could have had something incredible here, but for what it is, it's perfectly salvageable for what it is. I expected a whole lot worse watching this movie again, and I didn't get that. It was a movie that was actually kind of decent. There was a couple moments that did make me laugh. I thought Sinbad did a pretty good job doing what he had to do here. It's not the worst thing ever. That's probably not the best compliment to give to this, but it could have been a whole lot worse compared to some of these other movies that were coming out at the time. I actually got some decent laughs out of it. I thought it was alright. Wouldn't be one I'd watch over and over again, but I'm glad I saw it again. I'm glad I actually got some enjoyment out of it. So, some notable things about it. Bill Clinton's actually in a cameo with this when he was still president. Sonny Bono, this turned out to be his last on-screen appearance before his death in '98. Because, of course, he was serving in the House of Representatives. You got a cast that also includes Zachary Ty Bryan from Home Improvement, Tim Busfield, Robert Guillaume, Lisa Eichenhorn, James Naughton. It's got a good cast to it. And like I said, not a bad film. Definitely could have been a whole lot better, but certainly could have been a whole lot worse, too. So, that's First Kid. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is The Trigger Effect. David Koepp, of course, the legendary screenwriter of such films as Schindler's List, Searching for Bobby Fischer. He's written a lot of great scripts over his career. He's directed some pretty good movies, too. Like, after this, he did Stir of Echoes. He did a very good underrated film, Ghost Town, with Ricky Gervais and Greg Kinnear in 2008, as well as Premium Rush with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Both really good films. Overall, his directing career's been pretty good. This movie kind of starts off okay, but then it just kind of falls flat near the end when it matters the most. This is the film that is largely inspired by the Twilight Zone episode, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, which coincidentally actually starred the uncle of David Koepp, Claude Akins. And it was also inspired by this documentary series called Connections. You have the story where, you see it in the trailer, there's a widespread and lengthy power outage in Southern California, and everybody kind of goes nuts. And it's a very interesting movie. That could have been very good if they had stuck the landing, but this ending kind of takes it kind of goes where you kind of expect it to in a really lackluster way. It's a mediocre script that's not really the best overall. I think the high concept premise alone gets kind of overshadowed by the mediocre performances from Kyle MacLachlan, Elizabeth Shue, and Dermot Mulroney, three actors who have proven their worth over time, but they really don't get a whole lot to do here. And the plot itself gets overshadowed by a cliched riddle script. You can predict pretty much everything that's going to happen. And it's a good idea, though. Just like imagine that terrible series Revolution, except only 16 years prior to this. But watching the film again, I was just kind of like, I thought it was alright. I think it is just okay. It does have its moments where the suspense and the excitement are there, but they're very few and far between. It's a shame because there certainly is a whole lot here that really would have made for an incredible film, but as it is, it's just passable. Like I said, it's better than something like Revolution, which is a terrible, terrible show, but it has the right idea. It just doesn't stick the landing when it needed to the most, and that's really the biggest flaw of the film right there. So that's The Trigger Effect. That's going to lead us into our last movie here, and we've looked at a couple of bad Tom Arnold movies in 1996, Big Bully and Carpool, but nothing compares to this movie here. Let's take a look at the worst of the worst, and that is The Stupids. Oh my god, that was an abortion. Oh. I hope you enjoyed that, folks, because that is the majority of the jokes for the next hour and a half of this movie. This is a terrible movie. This is unbelievably bad. This is based off of a series of books I know nothing about. I just remember watching this movie when I was little. We rented it from the video store, and it did not leave an impact on me whatsoever in a good way. It left an impact on me in a very, very bad way because it was a horrible, horrible excuse of a movie. This is one of the most unfunniest things you will ever see. It is so devoid of the humor. That trailer alone should set you up for everything that is wrong with this movie. It is so unbelievably bad. And it's not for the lack of a bad idea. There are some good ideas here. There's a really funny concept that you could do with this. I mean, but again, we talked about it before. Beavis and Butthead Do America, I think, did this kind of idea better, where your main character are very stupid, but they play a part in a bigger story that they don't know about, and it led to a whole lot of much funnier material than what we get in this movie here. Like, the jokes in this movie are not funny. The music overall feels like we're watching something on the Disney Channel, in a Disney Channel original movie or a Nickelodeon movie. It's that bad. They have a CGI dog for some reason, which, I'm not going to lie, was pretty interesting to see at the time, but watching it again, it's just like, why is the dog CGI? Why is this dog, maybe not CGI, but stop motion, but like, it's weird. It's a weird thing they have going there. The humor here could be, again, could be really good, but it's amazing how much talent is on board with this movie, because not only do you have Tom Arnold, who, say what you will about his movies, Tom Arnold has been proven to be a decent, funny guy if you give him the good material to work with. True Lies, the original movie, is a great example of that. But not only him, but Christopher Lee is in here. Actually, Christopher Lee may be the best thing about the movie because he's actually trying to give something to this. But the director of this is John Landis, and John Landis, if you thought Beverly Hills Cop 3 would be the worst thing you'd ever be attached to, actually, I'd probably say that is still the worst movie he could. No, I take that back. This is the worst thing he's ever been attached to. I mean, like, this is a low for him. Brent Forrester, by the way, is the writer of this, and guess what he wrote? Guess what he's written for? He wrote during the peak years of The Simpsons. He's written for The Ben Stiller Show. He wrote for Mr. Show with Bob and David. He wrote on Declared. He wrote Super Fun Night. He wrote The Office. Worked on King of the Hill. Worked on Space Force. Worked on The Office. And it's just like, how do these people with so much talent get suckered into this? Like, it's amazing how they thought this was going to be the next big thing, and it just was not on any level, shape, or form. That scene alone should pretty much tell you everything you need to know about what kind of a bad movie experience you're about to go into with this. Like, it's unbelievable how bad this movie is. It's an amazing achievement in lackluster laziness, just unfunny material overall, and pointless cameos. Like, there's cameos all over the place in this movie, not just from Jenny McCarthy was one of the big ones. Rolando Watts, who was a big talk show host at the time. Adam McGoyan, a famous director. Norman Jewison, Robert Wise, David Cronenberg, Costa Garvis, Gorinda Chadha, Mick Garris, Harvey Atkin. Like I said, Christopher Lee is in here. You got Frankie Faison, Bug Hall from The Little Rascals, Bob Keeshan, Captain Kangaroo, Max Landis himself has a cameo in here, which makes sense because his dad directed this movie. But the talent that's in this movie and the fact that they thought they had something great to have these people come in here, it's amazing how low this movie sunk. Like, this is definitely one of the lows of comedy, really, when you look at this film overall. It's just, I really don't have anything else to say about this movie. If you saw this movie back then like I did, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a film that's not funny, it's not creative at all. It takes an idea that in the right hands could work, but not the way they present it here. Like, it's like New Line wanted to create the kiddie version of Dumb and Dumber, except Dumb and Dumber was a lot smarter than I think a lot of people give it credit for. And this is not. This is the movie that I think everybody was expecting Dumb and Dumber to be like. And what more do I have to say? It's a huge, massive failure on so many levels, and I've got nothing else for you. That's The Stupids literally is stupid. That's the best way to describe this film. And on that positive note, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we come back next time, 4 movies to look at, including Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler in the action comedy Bulletproof, Whoopi Goldberg and Gerard Depardieu in Bogus. We also have Killer, A Journal of Murder, and Sweet Nothing. So 4 movies to look at next time around, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.